Today on the Topping Show, a statistic on African immigrants on Snap/EBT goes viral on social media. Representative Randy Fine wants to introduce a bill to ban all illegals from getting all government welfare, aka handouts. Ram to start an SUV in 2028, and Ford issues 2 more recalls. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, say your founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. Ease me, see that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters, so you can mount to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the day, so if you can click that button and tell your friends and enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Ram to introduce an SUV by 2028. Now this is brought to us thanks to Caleb, who's a writer at thedrive.com, and they say, quote, Ram is adding its first SUV in 2028. Will we get a real Ram Charger revival? It's expected to get a gasoline powertrain as well as an extended range EV option, which, yeah, for all 18 people who want that extended range EV option. Again, of all the companies who do hybrids and EVs, Stellantis and Ram, your clients don't want that. There's a lot of other, I'd argue, more brands that have put a lot more research development and manufacturing. They put a lot more effort into it and they actually do it well. And that's what they're known for. Like, I mean, Tesla. They're ahead by leaps and bounds. Ram, we just want our Hemis. And ideally, they'll bring a stick shift back for the truck someday, I hope. Now, you can see the Ram truck on the screen right there. And he says, quote, you have to know by now that Ram only does trucks, which, yeah, that was one of those silly weird things they did, almost like over a decade now. Where, again, Ram was made by Dodge, the Dodge brothers, way back in the day before, later they subsequently sold out to Chrysler Corporation, who then went bankrupt and they bought out by Fiat. And then they rebranded. They're now known as Stellantis over in Italy. They're fancy. Well, they do have, their lineup does have the average reliability as an Italian car, so perhaps that's why most of their vehicles are junk these days. I'm only partially kidding. But again, Dodge thought, you know what? Ram is such a strong brand. Instead of this being the Ram, the Dodge Ram 1500, we're going to just call it the Ram 1500, which I always thought it was kind of weird. Most enthusiasts, they still call them Ram. They still call them Dodge Rams. And I would argue it just made a lot of systems and logistics cases a lot more difficult in terms of tracking your inventory, actually looking for vehicles for sale. It was kind of the weird thing where they also, at the same time where they, did this spin-off where now Ram's his own brand, they also had an instance where they spun off the SRT 8 line. So the SRT, which again, kind of like that's the top trim level for the whole, it used to be Chrysler Dodge group. Oh, and Jeep. Jeep's always in the background, breaking down with those Jeeps. But nevertheless, it's very similar to how General Motors has the SS Camaro. That's their top trim line for that vehicle. They did the same thing with Stellantis or with Ram. But instead of having, you'd have the Hellcat SRT8, it would just be, Dodge Hellcat. It would just be the SRT8. So they create a whole sub company and brand just for the top trim level of each vehicle. So it was ridiculously comically confusing. They stopped doing that, I think, about 2 years after that. But this weird newish tradition still stands on. Now, they say, quote, it'll soon add an SUV to lineup as Stellantis CEO Antonio Filosa announced to a room on Wall Street analyst. This was first reported by Automotive News, which quoted Antonio saying that the SUV is promised and the promised midsize pickup will have the Ram much more comprehensive product range. The truck maker will draw upon its relationship with Stellantis to bring the model to market in 2028. Expected to have a gas-only engine as well as the extended range EV powertrain, like the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, which, I don't know, to me looks kind of comical. I don't know. I just think that looks silly. The Airstream trailer behind it looks infinitely more beautiful. Well, also infinitely more reliable, but that's not saying much. And they said, it's going to be brought to us thanks to this relationship, which again, Stellantis owns 17 different brands, including Jeep. I can't but think you're just going to get bastardized Jeep with different body panels on it and a Ram logo glued on. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they'll spring for the nice 3M adhesive tape, but you know what I mean. Now, they say, although it's not a sure bet, it sounds like the Ram SUV will be a 3-row rather than the Dodge Durango equivalent. Ram's midsize truck will be built in Toledo, Ohio, next to the Jeep Gladiator, whereas the newly announced family hauler will be assembled in Warren, Michigan. They say, if that is indeed the case, you can pretty much bet on it riding atop Stellantis STLA frame platform, this relatively flexible architecture that was originally developed to accommodate both internal combustion only powertrains as well as electrified ones. And while it will be just like a Ram to put a Hemi V8 under the hood and a generator for the range extended EV, it's almost definitely, well, it will almost definitely be a Pentastar V6 like the Grand Wagoneer and Ram 1500 REV pickup, which a sure way to make it more disappointing would be put in a V6. Or who knows, they might just throw in the Hurricane engine, which is their straight 6 twin turbo, which, again, a straight 6 engine or 6 cylinders directly in a row is great in a BMW with 3 pedals. Yeah, for the Stellantis product line, it's mostly comical with more and more mechanics saying, yeah, there's having issues here, though there's no big recall yet. Just a lot of anecdotal chats I've had with mechanics, and they are saying, these Hurricane engines are not very good. But nevertheless, they say, speaking of the electrified pickup, it was originally going to be called the Ram Charger, but the automaker pulled the switcheroo once it killed the battery-only model. Yes, because that would not sell well. If you remember, Ram sold the Ram Charger SUV back in the day. It was more of a Bronco and K5 Blazer competitor. It seems that now might be the time to bring that name back, although it would surely ruffle some feathers for the traditional Mopar fans. They say it's all part of the auto manufacturing parent company's sizable $13 billion investment into the United States manufacturing through 2029. Velosa reportedly, again, that's the CEO, emphasized the domestic market is important for Ram Stellantis at large, saying the U.S., quote, is a key priority for success because we are strong in the U.S. and we are stronger and better as a company everywhere, which, yes, it's also because the U.S. is a very lucrative market. Also, it's because emissions are being pulled back a little bit in the United States. And again, the thing that Ram does best is big, loud, fun trucks. I would say pretty much all of Dodge, that's what Dodge is known for. Even though, again, Ram is something different. I'm still waiting for them to bring the good old, I can't even say this without smiling, a V10 stick shift Dodge Viper. I mean, that is one of the purest driving experiences you could ever have. They need to bring that back. It's time. Come on, Dodge. But again, they're also bringing these to the United States Assembly because of tariffs. I mean, that's going to be tariffs, logistics, and cost of shipping. There are many reasons why they're increasing the U.S. investment. And again, I think in terms of the global market, SUVs are really hot in the United States, especially for the larger ones. So it makes sense to make them here. Now, they say, quote, selling a big SUV in the United States is perfectly logical given that there's so much demand. We love them so much in our country. A Chevy Tahoe is a full-size segment's Periel bestseller. Last year, GM sold more than 105,000 of those suckers, and that's not counting the 87,000 GMC Yukons that were delivered, which, again, same vehicle, but different badges, I would argue, lazily or haphazardly glued onto the front and back of the vehicles. Again, I'm sure they shoot. Well, I was about to say they probably use very high quality GM or 3M adhesive tape, but let's be honest with GM, they probably use Elmer's glue. I'm only partially kidding. They also note that Ford is proving the new Expedition that people are interested in options without the bow tie on the grille. So it only makes sense that Ram will join next, which, yeah. And again, this will be highly profitable for Stellantis, which Lord knows they need. They've been losing billions of dollars. Say last year, the revenue and profits crashed around 48% and 45% respectively. Like, terrible. And again, those big old trucks and SUVs are where these companies make a majority of their profit. Only Tesla is making any money on EVs, which you could also debate that is due to emissions credits that they also sell and government incentives. In terms of actual traditional products, I mean, this is where they make money. Ford lost, was it $4.8 billion on EVs in 2024? Most likely going to lose $5.2 billion on EVs in 2025. Again, this is what the company needs, is vehicles that customers really, really want and that are also extremely profitable. It is interesting. I understand why they're increasing the name of the provenance of the Ram line. Though again, unless it has if they were to do a really big, obnoxious, cool, fun engine and make it extremely unique, I think that'll increase the value to the consumer even more. But I do fear it's almost like, I would also argue the dark days, the 80s and 90s, where a lot of vehicles, especially by General Motors, they'd have the same vehicle and just slap on different logos on the front and the back when GM had 8+ brands in the United States. I am very skeptical about this idea because I think they'll do just that. But really, the question is, will the consumer buy either way? But let me know your thoughts and comments because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the cultural part podcast, statistic on African immigrants on Slap/EDBT going viral on social media. Now, this brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, and he is actually reposting for a reporter. I believe it was ABC7, and he actually just reposted a reporter, so without too much further ado.
Exploring all options, African Immigrant Family Services says that more than 90% of the families they help rely on food assistance.
Which is insane. Now, there's a lot of bombastic responses. One of the only few things I learned in college that's worth anything, which, pretty low bar. I took business statistics, which, yeah, I really don't use that. Yeah, debatably use that at all. But one of the things the professors did tell me was, when it comes to any statistics, always remember ask, what is your sample size? Because again, just like political polls or any polls in general and statistics, you can very easily manipulate those numbers by having a very selective group that you pull from. And in this case, again, it's 90%. The way it's framed, it sounds like 90% of all African immigrants are on SNAP/EBT or government handouts, which would be ridiculous. That's way big. Now, again, specifically, he is saying the people that this nonprofit assists. This nonprofit is African Immigration Family Services, which, again, if you need family services, it would make sense you're on more and more assistance because that's the whole purpose of them is to give and align them with resource allocations that would help their families out. Now, again, that statistic is still extremely comically high, but again, I'm not surprised that it is so high because these are people that they're working with them for assistance. So again, I'm not surprised it's 90%. Now, this went moderately viral, got about 300,000 views as well as 10,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to David Santa Clara saying, quote, every immigrant that receives food stamps should be immediately deported back home, getting 1.2 thousand likes, which now it'll be interesting to see in terms of the vernacular and the delineation. I would argue yes. Now, for the audience's question, what are your thoughts on refugees? Now, again, that word has also been used and abused so many times throughout the past 10 years, it's kind of lost all meaning, where everyone just claims to be a refugee when I really don't think 99% of them are, especially when it comes to international norms and laws. They're supposed to go to the first country at which they're not at risk, but they all just seem to come all the way to the United States. So it's like, yeah, if you're fearful of your life in your home country, why wouldn't you go right next door? Or maybe the other place, or not next door, but maybe one right down the street. Which again, those countries are safe. And yet, no, they come all the way to the United States. I would argue, do they really count as refugee status there? Now, again, in terms of immigrants, yeah, if you're coming here willingly, you do the proper paperwork. In most cases, I would argue you should be a net positive in terms of the tax revenue, in terms of government handouts, in terms of welfare. And I think that's where David Santa Clara, that's one of the reasons he got 1.2 thousand likes for his statement. Paul Zupa also says this doesn't seem sustainable, and he got 35 likes. Should got more. Let's make him 36 likes, which, yeah, it's not. Again, the U.S. is $38 trillion in debt because of the ineptitudes and or corruption of Democrats and Republicans. That's insane. $38 trillion. We now spend more on the interest of the loan that we have than the loan itself. We're not paying down the principal, we're just paying the interest. Yeah, we're kind of screwed. It's not good. We also have Amelia Henderson saying, quote, to summarize, she has a quote from Democrat Whip Representative Catherine Clark, says, of course, there will be families that are going to suffer, but this is one of the few leverage times we have, getting 14 likes. Ace Elcherson says, quote, ready the ships, they're going back, getting 9 likes. Cowgal says, F that, getting 3 likes. Logan Hall says, get these people the hell out of my country by any means necessary, getting 973 likes. Robert Steffer got some of the highest response rates. He said there's no upside to increasing the African demographic, getting 838 likes. What is he ratioed, though? Whitebird says, what is the upside of African demographic to begin with, getting 7 likes. Cyber Patriot Guild says they can't even figure out how to franchise their ethnic food because it's terrible, getting 7 likes. There's not ratioed by likes or comments. Hitler says deport, getting 684 likes. We also have I Love American News says, quote, being able to feed yourself should be the minimum requirement for immigration. And he also has a picture with a quote from Alex Day. I don't purposely try to mispronounce most names. It's kind of a side effect of my speaking ineptitudes. Is Alexis de Tocqueville, maybe, who says, quote, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money, getting 195 likes. Barry Megan says, why were they imported, getting 129 likes? Which, well, Again, it's been said multiple times, a great replacement theory, of course. Again, the U.S. birth rate is also collapsing in terms of people, the average American taxpayer. They're going to import a bunch of cheap labor, which, again, in theory, they'll in turn make tax revenue for the government and will someday get out of debt. I don't think that'll happen, but that, I suppose, is one of the theories. God and Country has a picture of a sign that says, stop giving them benefits and they will deport themselves, getting 97 likes, which, true. Now, again, that being said, it's become not just a cultural, but a very huge political topic. Again, about half the United States wants people to get free shit for free, which I know I used the word free multiple times in that sentence, probably improperly. Terrible grammar today, but nevertheless, you get the point. And there's a lot of people who think food and healthcare is a right. No, of course it's not. You're not entitled to someone else's free labor. That's disgusting. You also have Libs Hate Up said, why are they in my country getting 98 likes? Well, to vote as well, of course. Let's see. Song Pang says, in China, your welfare, benefits, and even pensions all depend on your social credit score. If your score falls too low, authorities will take them away. Getting 42 likes. You also have Daryl Harrison says, it's why they come here to live, free and lazy, getting 60 likes. Let's see. Doge.ai says, improving access to Nutrition Act of 2025 isn't about solving hunger, it's about institutionalizing dependency. By repealing work requirements for able-bodied adults, the bill transforms SNAP from temporary assistance to permanent entitlement. The 90% reliance rate exposed by African immigrant services proves the system's failure to uplift families into self-sufficiency. Instead of addressing the root causes like job training gaps or economic policies that suppress wages, Democrats prioritize expanding welfare bureaucracy. Taxpayers fund the cycle while inflation crushes working class budgets. Real reform would tie aid to skills development, not trap generations for government dependency. The data behind this policy and policy failures demands attention. See evidence yourself, getting 28 likes, which, yeah, again, conspiratorially, I do think there's some logic to the idea that the government just wants you to have as much free stuff as possible, so you're weak and dependent on the government, and you just vote for a bigger, more bureaucratic government that'll give you more free stuff, basically bribing you. Kind of like how, a lot of people who are government welfare, government handouts for food also get, free healthcare from the government. Well, not free, it's from the taxpayers as well as loans from China and other countries that ironically hate us. So that's always been one of my theories of why is the government having these policies that increase the number of people who are dependent on the system? Oh, they're buying votes. They're basically enslaving you. You also have Son of Liberty 357. And the t-shirt says, stop rewarding, start deporting, getting 35 likes. Mirthful Moment says, reminders, immigrants of any kind, illegal or legal, should not be getting these benefits in the first place. Getting 31 likes. Yep. Jay says, immigrants are supposed to be public charges at all. Send them back, getting 30 likes. Kelly says, if we stop giving these people benefits, they will leave, getting 27 likes, which, yep. Again, it's pretty simple incentive mechanism. So many people rush to the United States, not just for freedom, but because they know they'll get free stuff. I mean, if we were to actually stop all that, presumably they would go somewhere else. Now, again, I'm very pessimistic if we will ever be able to stop the free stuff, because, again, people love free stuff, and people also vote for more free stuff. So I'm pretty pessimistic if there will actually be any changes. Let's see. Trying to see if there's any contrarian statements here. None thus far. Patriot Suzanne says, if they can work for a living, then go... if they can't work for a living, then go home, getting 5 likes. Leah Thomas Brown says, bye then, getting 5 likes. Let's see. Starship Aliavs says, it's free food. The first thing the student visa Indians discovered in Toronto was the food banks don't ask questions at the door. They'll go there and get free food. Free food, LOL, getting 4 likes. Genevieve says, at this point, if you are a legal immigrant and cannot make enough to take care of yourself and your family, you should be stripped of your visa and deported, getting 4 likes. Again, especially if it's taxpayer money. Now, that's one of my biggest gripes is how much the government steals from us and gives to the people who don't work. It's staggering and scary and disgusting how much they steal from us, Democrats especially, and Republicans. And since I would argue, if you want to help out people who are down on their luck, local nonprofits as well as religious organizations can do it infinitely more effective than the U.S. government. And again, that's where people are voluntarily donating to those causes or those institutions, where again, the government is stealing it. Again, you also have an issue where, again, if you're here illegally, you shouldn't get anything. I think you could debate how long you should allow a ramp up period if you're coming to the United States legally as well. Presumably you're coming here because we need people. I was told we need H-1B and all these folks. I was told we need it because of the very unique skill sets they have. Again, some of those out-earn some Americans. And some industries are much more prevalent than others in terms of participation rate. But again, if you're a legal immigrant, I was told, they have very unique skill sets, a very unique set of skills that we need. Again, to a certain extent, I think that for some industries, that might be true. But right now, we have a lot of unemployed Americans. A lot of people that can barely pay their. Some Americans are taking out loans just to pay for groceries. That's ridiculous. That's disgusting. That's a thing. I'm becoming more and more pessimistic of many of these programs, which you could argue maybe they have good intentions. Granted, we all know the age-old quote, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." And again, the way the statistic was phrased, it's the people that are being helped, that's 90%. It is not 90% of all African immigrants in the United States. So again, I think it's important to frame the statistic appropriately. But again, that is quite concerning as well, 90%. Then I'd love to see statistics and maybe the breakdown of how long are folks on government handouts, government welfare. It's supposed to be, again, a helping hand, get you on the right path. Unfortunately, in many instances, we're seeing it become more and more a generational lifestyle. But let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part podcast, I have Congressman Randy Fine going to introduce a bill to ban all non-citizens from welfare. That was brought to us thanks to his X account, specifically hashtag Rep Fine, spelled F-I-N-E. And he says, quote, well, he's in politics because he uses fancy words. And he doesn't use the term illegal, which many people say is pejorative and evil. So he says, quote, I'm going to introduce a bill to ban all non-citizens from any form of welfare. No food stamps, no Section 8 housing, no Medicaid, no cash allowance, not one penny, not one. Want free stuff? Go home. Gained 4.7 million views and 182,000 likes. Which, yeah, I think they're going to have a lot of public support about this. Now, the question is, how many rhinos will actually say, oh no, we'll vote for this, but then the last minute the rhinos will do nothing at all. There's a lot of people who are very disappointed in politics. I would say, well, I'd argue nearly all of them. But yeah, I'm sure to tweet is pretty free. And again, I appreciate he's thinking about this issue. Again, with $38 trillion in debt because of the ineptitude and corruption of Democrats and Republicans, it's not sustainable. And again, if you're here illegally, it's especially disgusting that you're stealing these programs, which again, some people legitimately need. There are some people who are down on their luck. I always tell folks, especially if you go and volunteer at some food pantries in other areas, you never look down on a lot of them because you never know what you could just be one accident, one bad decision away from being in the same place. You never know. And so again, I personally think that nonprofits and religious local churches and religious organizations are I was about to say 1,000, infinitely more effective actually helping the people who are in need than the government, who I can't decide some days that the government is more stupid or corrupt. It's depending on what day you ask me, I'll say one or the other, or maybe like Archer says, little column A, little column B. So again, the fact that people are coming here illegally, cutting in line, stealing that opportunity for people who are going through the right process, the legal process to do that, is really, I find it viscerally disgusting that they're stealing with these programs so often. And again, we can't afford it. $38 trillion in debt. And I kind of emphasize how big, how momentous of a problem that is. It's going to crash sometime, and it's going to be really scary when the music stops. The real question is, when is it going to stop? Now, again, this one pretty well. I got 4.7 million views, 182,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Data Republican. Says, quote, your last name should be Finest, gained 3.8 thousand likes. He says, thank you, gained 786 likes. Brother Eagleman says, quote, in the real world, this would pass unanimously, gained 3.3 thousand likes. Yeah, but of course it won't. Again, one of the reasons you had the government shutdown is because Democrats introduced part of the bill that would say, oh yeah, we want free healthcare and all this stuff for all the illegals. Remember Maxine Waters, who debatably looks more visually visceral and disgusting than I, which is saying something. She blatantly said, oh yeah, we want healthcare for everyone, which again includes illegals. She was asked point blank by a reporter, oh yeah, you're holding up this bill, Republicans are going to pass it because you introduced this part that would, cover healthcare for illegals. She goes, we think healthcare, everyone should have it, which obviously everyone includes, people who broke into the country. So again, it should pass unanimously. But again, we've seen a political shift dramatically past 15 years especially. Again, go back to the 90s. All Democrats also agreed illegal immigration is a problem, and they said, no, we shouldn't have it. Even Hillary Clinton was saying we need to have a more secure, not just financial security, but also for in terms of the economy, we need to have a tight, secure border. Even she was saying that back then. Though I should clarify, Hillary Clinton is definitely a beautiful, intelligent woman, not at all evil or corrupt, or had a disproportionate amount of people commit suicide, like 20 plus people. And coincidentally, I want to note that I don't own any rope and plan to live a long life. Just thought I'd throw that out there, coincidentally. Now you also have Raylan Stark saying, quote, base Randy fine, getting 109 likes. We found our first contrarian statement. This is from David John Brashear, who says, quote, this you? And is a screenshot from a profile by name of Track APAC. It says, Randy Fine received $458,168 from APAC. I'm going to guess this. When is that? That statistic is from August 2025. They got 6.2 thousand likes. Whoa. Blue Dot says, why don't Republicans research anything before opening their big stupid mouths? Don't you have staff to do that? She got 4.9 thousand likes, which she ratioed. Daniel says, if no one's, and she insinuates, oh yeah, the programs say, have to have all these IDs. Again, we also see Tim Walz in Minnesota, which I personally mispronounce as a slight to that weak conquered state, saying we're going to give driver's license to anyone, legal or illegal. Many other states have those same policies, and a lot of these programs we've seen, oh yeah, they don't check much. It's also the same thing when it comes to illegals voting. We're told, oh yeah, well, pretty much everything leftists say. First they say it's not happening, then they say, well, it's happening, but it's just a little bit. Then they say, well, it's happening and it's a good thing. You have to tolerate it. No. Then they say it's happening and you should think it's a good thing. Then they say it's happening, you should celebrate it. Pretty much every leftist idea or thought point goes around that same process. Now you also have David, which, geez Louise, I'm not purposely trying to butcher these things, folks. I'm attempting. David Haktiki Oju. Haqiq. Let's get. I was about to say it's a great Scrabble word, but again, in Scrabble, you can't actually use names. So he is a Muslim founder of MuslimSkeptic.com, writer and lecturer on Islam and modernity. He's got 175,000 followers. Again, this is from Daniel Haki Tiokcho. Says, what about all the free Israelis that get American taxpayer food, healthcare, education? Welfare Jews in Israel is kosher for you. They got 4.7 thousand likes, which it is pretty crazy that they actually get free healthcare, free college over there. While, again, most Americans are destroying their own lives in terms of financial hardships, picking out college loans at as high as like 7.5% interest rates, destroying their ability to make a living long term, or build a savings or buy a house. While again, the other country, they have all that for free. Now, again, that is $1 trillion issue in the United States, and well, fiscally in terms of is it 3.8 billion per year? Now, again, there's also other things they get in terms of military support. It's not just that cash, but yeah, there's definitely more and more people starting to bring out the attention to the APAC recipients. I believe only 2 people in the U.S. government or Congress has not received anything from them. So this is a thing where both left and the right, in terms of DC, greatly support Israel. Tim Sniggins says this, but for Israel. It says how Randy Fine seems himself as the Bear Jew from, what movie is that? Inglourious Bastards. And then it's juxtapositioned with a fat guy says how we see Randy Fine is a AI generating picture of a fat man with a Israeli cheerleading uniform, getting 3,000 likes. Israel Exposed also says, well, all the free stuff we give Israel, getting 2.6 thousand likes. Fred Wellman says, quote, introduce a bill to who? You cowards are at home on free vacation hiding. You aren't doing anything but eating whole pizzas and lying, getting 2.5 thousand likes. Guys getting ratioed. Carrying guy says, Randy was one of those posts that sounds tough until you just think about it more and more in 5 seconds, and it collapses on pure nonsense. First, citizens don't get any federal benefits. That's what we're told about the voting, too. And myriad of other government handouts. He says, federal law has barred undocumented immigrants from welfare since 1996. Yeah. Got 1.7 thousand likes. You have Mirthful Moments having the picture of the stop giving them benefits, they'll deport themselves poster, getting 1.5 thousand likes. Representative Jack Kimball says this would be a great accomplishment to my bill making crime illegal, getting 1.6 thousand likes. Shipwreck says it's already in the big beautiful bill, getting 1.2 thousand likes. Let's see. Syria Bravo Actual says meh, and it's the recycle logo with the circle of arrows. He's got the sad looking guy in the middle says, I wake up, Democrats do something blatantly illegal. GOP politicians are outraged. Nothing happens. I wake up, and it goes in a circle. He forgot. I mean, it says GOP politicians are outraged. I actually do wonder how many of them are actually irate or upset, or if they're just, pontificating for political points. Instead of being outraged, it should just be changed to write angry letter, or, wag an angry finger at someone. You're going to call someone to Congress and ask them questions. Ooh. Again, the amount of people that Republicans have actually held their feet to the fire, actually held accountable, you could probably write in a small cocktail napkin, which is funny because cocktail napkins are comically small, which napkins I always thought were a waste of money. I can't believe people waste money buying napkins. They're literally just overpriced paper towels. Personally, I've never done it. I think it's just a silly thing to do. Just use paper towels or something. Nevertheless, Nick Cezabo says, does this include the welfare giving to Israel? Getting 1.2 thousand likes. He's getting ratioed beyond all belief. I think he's had 3 positive comments. I haven't seen a ratio this bad since my daily show sometimes. Let's see. The last squash says you should start by booting all corporations that have foreign investors, foreign board members, and foreign ownership of all corporate welfare. It says 170 billion for ICE, 117 billion in taxes for the rich, 40 billion for Argentina, 240 million for Vanity Ballroom. Well, that's privately funded. It also says for 230 million in DOG payments, 100 million on golf. It says food stamps are a problem. Getting 1,000 likes. The guy who says food stamps is the problem is a small caricature with a red hat. Let's see. I think nearly everything else is just ratioing him. Robert Seffer says why this isn't already law is mind-boggling, getting 842 likes. Ian McCollum, 84. Can't be the. Is it? No, I don't think it's him. I was gonna say Ian McCollum. In terms of me knowing of him, he's just, I would argue, a great historical researcher. Looks at his show is called Forgotten Weapons. I don't think that's him though. It says I'm fine with this. You could also seek to deport illegals. While at it, can we also cut funding to Israel and the genocidal regimes? Getting 763 likes. Let's see. I'd say he's actually mostly ratioed. Urkel says no public education, getting 416 likes. A lot of people saying should already be a bill, shouldn't have to be a bill, getting 3 to 4 likes. You have Chicago One Ray. He has a snip from, it's not Fox News, is it? I believe it's Fox News. It also says Finnerty, so it might be a local affiliate. And it says food stamps by ethnicity, and they know Afghan 45.6, Somali 42.4, Iraqi at 34.8, and Haitian at 23.3. Let's see. But they actually don't really give the parameters of the sample size. Because again, in terms of who's on it in a whole, white people right now, again, demographics are greatly changing in the United States. That is the biggest. Now, again, per capita, that's when it does change. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the business blunder of the day at Ford with yet another recall. This time, 2 more, actually. Brought to us thanks to Chris, who's a writer at carsubes.com. And they say, quote, Ford's snowflake recall proves even its glass can't handle criticism. And you know it's quality because there's a Ford logo on it, which obviously not. Now they say, quote, the Bronco, Explorer, Econoline van, and 2 Lincoln SUVs are caught up in Ford's latest recall campaign. Now they say that Ford's recalling over 227,000 vehicles for various quality and safety issues. More than 163,000 Broncos need their front seats inspected and re-secured. Nearly 59,000 Explorers and Lincolns might have bubbles in the windshield glass, which, I mean, I love the fact that the Ford Bronco comes with the option for a stick shift. That is extremely rare in 2025. That's awesome. But I think this is, the 7th recall for the Ford Bronco? Like, Jesus Louise. At a certain point, buy a Toyota, man. It's going to be infinitely better for your pocketbook, which I suppose they don't use those anymore. But nevertheless, better for your finances. You want to spend, half the year going to the dealership in the service department? It's getting to the point with Ford, you probably are on a first-name relationship with their service tech. They probably deserve a Christmas gift just for dealing all this stuff. But nevertheless, they say, quote, you know about that tightening feeling in your stomach when a letter, obviously from the government department, lands on your doormat and you convince yourself it's either a traffic fine or demand for more taxes? Just imagine how stressful a visit from the postman could be if you're a maniacal red light jumper, terrible bookkeeper, and Ford owner dreading yet another letter telling you to waste a morning sitting around at your local service center. Owners of multiple Ford and Lincoln SUVs can be expected to get those letters in the upcoming months after the automaker revealed it's recalling 227,006 cars, vans, and SUVs due to a variety of problems. Which, I should put a visual disclaimer on the screen. You're going to see some more Ford vehicles, which not all of them look, I mean, the Mustang does look pretty good. The real one, not the Mustang E-Mach, that's an abomination. We dare not speak of it. But there you see the interior of the Bronco, though. A little disappointing. You see that it's a automatic transmission there, because you see that boring shift now. But nevertheless, they say, quote, Ford found that one of the seat frame rail adjustment pivot bolts may become loose and even fall out, which could cause a squeak or rattle, or more worryingly, might reduce accident protection, which, I mean, that doesn't really, I mean, it's a good thing they get these letters, because a regular rattling from a Ford vehicle, you'd probably think is just normal, since they, well, pretty much do that. I suppose they forgot the 3 cents of Loctite. Now they say the snowflake problem. Next are the latest Ford Explorer and Lincoln Corsair and Aviator. Each of them are built for the 2025-2026 model years. Almost 48,000 Explorers, 3,000 Corsairs, and over 3,900 Aviators have bubbles in the laminate layer of the windshield glass. Problem is traced back to a de-airing during the lamination process that can cause a snowflake effect, which even the glass is broken on a Ford. SUVs have their windshields inspected and replaced if necessary, though Ford thinks that in 85% of cases, the snowflakes appear within 3 minutes. About 50% are picked up during a PDI, so the incident rate will be low. And here you can see one of those abomination SUVs there. Now, they say the quote, and lastly, 6,900 examples of Ford's 2026 Econoline van are being recalled over worrisome about interoperative defrosting systems that can cause even bigger windshield visibility problems. Jeez. I don't know how they're still in business. These latest recalls come off the back of Ford recalling 175,000 Ford and Lincoln trucks and SUVs over wind deflectors that are at risk of breaking free. And you can be sure you won't get through November without an announcement of more Blue Oval campaigns. Which, again, yeah, they've had over 117 recalls. It is a record, though not the kind of good record you want to collect. I don't think they're going to pay the fee for Guinness World Book to come to the headquarters and count them all and get an award or accolade for that. It would be hilarious if like General Motors were to pay for that for them. I don't think you can. But yeah, in terms of all the things you want on a vehicle to work, the windshield is kind of an important thing. And allegedly, Ford does have a quality assurance department from time to time that inspects vehicles. And again, this is the most important thing they make in terms of profitability and viability from a business perspective, the SUVs and the trucks. Again, Ford lost about $4.8 billion in EVs in 2024. They're on track to lose 5.1 or 5.2 billion on EVs in 2025. The only way they can afford those boondoggles, which again might make money someday in theory, they might be able to get there. Tesla did, though, with government, with some government subsidies and tax credits. But nonetheless, it can be done. If Ford wants to be able to go down that path and continue down that path, they need, again, the most profitable, important thing about the company to keep selling like hotcakes, again, aka the gas engine vehicles, the SUVs, and the trucks. And again, Ford has more and more recalls around the most important things they make, the SUVs and trucks. So I gotta say, Ford, you are once again the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. Let me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone, everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.